Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about practice. And as I've already mentioned, practice is your best friend. It truly is the most important thing you can do to feel confident going into your speech or public speaking engagement. So, the first thing that I always advise people to do is to make a really detailed outline or manuscript of your speech. So, generally, what I would suggest doing is printing it out so it's one-sided, not back to back. So, say maybe you have three or four pieces of paper. Then you can put them out on the table while you're practicing so you can see the whole thing instead of having to flip, you know. Then, what I recommend doing is marking up the manuscript. Put cues in the manuscript, such as take a deep breath. Connect that with a pause. Pausing is wonderful delivery technique anyway to create emphasis. Or maybe you want to emphasize a word to, again, really show its importance. Maybe you want to write a note that says slow down in this area. Or maybe if you're trying to create some rhythm, you could say speed up. So there's many different things that you can put in to mark your outline, and it depends on the kind of speech that you're giving. I'm not going to go deeply into that since we're talking about nerves, but I do think that marking up your outline ahead of time at the beginning of your practicing helps you feel less nervous about when you're bringing in these cues, and you also are able to actually in the moment put in deep breaths that should be able to help you with nerves throughout the speech. The next main thing to do while practice is to practice your speech, A, vocally. I also always say standing up, and you want to do it in conditions that mimic real life as much as possible. So, one way to do that is to go to the park or on a street or maybe even a cafe and to actually practice your speech. I know it sounds embarrassing, but it really does help when people are around you. So that's really helping being able to nail your speech, remember your transitions when there are distractions. And also you will probably have an elevated heart rate because you might be feeling some social embarrassment. But it really is helpful. The next is also connected to the high heart rate. So again, when you're feeling anxious, your heart rate will be a little bit quicker. So another way to practice is to practice right after you finished exercising. So if you go on a brisk walk or a jog or you do some weights and your heart rate is higher, go in and practice your speech right away to feel what that's like in order to mimic the real experience. And then lastly, by far the coolest and I would say most helpful is to actually practice with virtual reality if you're able to. So, virtual reality, you'd have the virtual reality goggles essentially, and in that you can see different scenes of audience. So, you actually feel like you are looking at people, which is really important to mimic the real event. You can, in a lot of virtual reality tools, you can change the environment. So maybe you're on a stage, or maybe you're in a classroom, or you're having an interview. So that can help mimic whatever the actual event will be for you. And then many times with virtual reality, you're allowed to add distractions, or you tell the virtual reality to put in distractions. And so that's nothing major, but it might be someone like rummaging or a phone going off or something like that. That again will mimic reality as much as possible. So, if you are a CMDI student at the University of Colorado Boulder, there is an incredible immersive media lab that you can use to actually practice your speech. So, hyperlinked on immersive media is the URL to the website to get more information. But essentially, you're able to go into this lab, and this picture is actually of this lab, and put on the goggles and experience what I just told you. And it really is effective. There was a meta-analysis of 92 studies, and they found that virtual reality significantly reduces public speaking anxiety. So again, I highly recommend that you check out the Immersive Lab and, try your speech and see how it feels.